Witches, it's Lena here with a personal vlog. The first thing I want to do is just to send gratitude to every single one of you that has sent prayers and energy and healing vibes our way, even just good thoughts. And to those of you that have reached out by DM and expressed your concern, and just thank you, thank you, thank you for thinking of us in this time. So you may be aware that on January 6th, my husband Cliff had a heart attack. And what a year this month has been. That's all I can say. What a lifetime. Those of you that have been through it know the fear, the uncertainty. And, you know, it's one of those moments when, as Pema Chodron says, life nails you. You know, you are nailed. And time and space fall away. You're absolutely in the present moment. He went to the hospital from a doctor's appointment, so I heard about it, you know, the doctor half an hour away, and had to scramble to find somebody to drive me out there and get the car and meet him at the emergency room. And it was, you know, that mad scramble. Oof, there went a stink bug. When you find out what's happening. And and I want to talk first just about the hospital experience. I got to the ER. It was one designated person. And of course, they check your temperature. They give you a mask if you don't have one. Of course, we had our N95s. We've been wearing those kind of throughout. And got back to the room with him. And, you know, it wasn't... so I want to say this too. Not every heart attack is like grab your chest and fall to the ground. Symptoms can be widely varied from one person to the other. Yes, he was having chest pain. Yes, he was having jaw pain. That was like the big thing. So jaw pain and pain down the arms and, you know, all of those things. Just be aware, you know, go online, look up the symptoms for heart attacks, because they're a lot more varied than you would think. And women in particular usually don't have the typical, you know, chest pain, shortness of breath, pain going down the left arm, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, take care of yourselves. The first kind of shock beyond that was finding out in the ER that they had told him, but by the time I got there, he said, yeah, they told me they would not admit me if I was tested positive for COVID. They tested him in the doctor's office before they called the squad. And, you know, the first reaction to that, particularly from other family members, was like, what? How can they? And it's like, okay, stop a hot second and think about this. This hospital is struggling so hard to care for the patients that are there for care. And imagine your loved one had a heart attack and was on the cardiac wing, and you found out that they admitted someone with COVID, and now the whole floor is at risk. You know, these hospitals are making tough decisions about how best to care for their patients. And, you know, if you're COVID positive, so I'm sure there were people coming through the ER with COVID, but so I don't know how that works. I don't know how that works. Truthfully, I don't. But I'm sure they had COVID people at that hospital. I think that the thing is they won't admit you to another section of the hospital, like the cardiac wing, the maternity ward, things like that, if you are COVID positive. So they are relying on us, you know, to help keep them safe. We know this. Cliff had a stent put in the following morning. He had a cardiac catheterization, which, you know, modern miracles. Holy shit, you guys, that they didn't crack his chest open is just fucking miraculous. They could only place one stent that day because it was exploratory and it took a long time for them to find out what was going on. Here's another miraculous thing. He had 2 arteries that were 75% blocked, and a third that has been 100% blocked for a while, they said. We'll see the cardiologist on Wednesday, and I want to find out what a while means, because they didn't have to fix that one because his body had already grown new vessels around the blockage. So, human miracles as well. Just in the incredible body and the incredible, our incredible medical science. So anyway, he had one stent placed that day. Then they kept him in the ICU for 24 hours. because he's on like multiple blood thinners, and they have to watch for any kind of a bleeding event. He did really well out of that one. And I want to tell you, when they took us to the ICU, we got in there, they put him in his room, and I mean, it was just this island of calm. And they said, you can take your masks off in here because it's clean. Everybody is vetted and vetted again before you get there, you know, and it just felt like this safe haven. The hospital he was in is called Portage, University Hospital's Portage campus, and they were the only hospital like 10 or 15 years ago or so when there was this big C. diff outbreak in area hospitals. C. diff is a bacteria that gets in your intestines, and it's very difficult to get rid of, which is why it's called C. difficile. And at that time, there was one area hospital where pretty much everybody that went in there got C. diff. But our hospital was the only one in the area that was disinfecting their cleaning equipment in between rooms, so they didn't spread it from one room to another. Just amazing. Things that we witnessed in the hospital. First of all, shortened visiting hours, 12 to 7. One designated visitor per day, maybe even per the whole time. I don't know, because I was the only one. But we saw National Guard being shown around to, you know, help out because of the overwhelm of how many cases they had. When he was in the ER on it was a Thursday. I left at like 4 o'clock because I went to the nurse and I said, I'm assuming he's going to the cardiac wing. And she said, yeah, but that could happen in the middle of the night. We have no beds available. So she took my number. She said, please give me your number. We will call you when we move him. And they did. It was like 9 o'clock at night or something. And I left also because he was finally falling asleep. He hadn't slept for days. So he was falling asleep and I left. And so we saw, you know, National Guard being shown around, but we saw everywhere the evidence of just the overwhelm. One nurse that was walking me to the ICU recovery room, they couldn't send him to ICU right away because they were waiting for a bed to open. And so they took me to the recovery room, and as she walked me there, I said, I can't imagine, you know, what you guys are going through right now. And she said, well, at one point we had 19 people in the ER waiting for beds to open up, and they actually had nursing staff that were spending the night with patients so that, you know, there would be someone watching them until a bed opened up. So just incredible people, incredible, dedicated people. Some were willing to talk about it and, you know, happy for the validation that we were aware. Some of them were like, it is what it is, you know, just doing my job. But everyone in that hospital is just excellent care. Anytime we've been in that hospital for whatever reason, it has been excellent, excellent care. So huge, huge gratitude to Portage. Cliff came home on the Saturday, and then he had to go back on the following Friday for another stent. And the reason they couldn't do it at the time was because they put this radioactive dye, you know, I can't remember what they call it. Anyway, your kidneys have to process that out. And they said, we've already put enough of this dye into your system. And then they had to give him a week to process that out before they could go in and put more dye in. So that week was pins and needles, because he could have had another heart attack at any time because of the still blocked artery. And hi, Wacka, quit eating my plant, please, please, please. So I took him back the following Friday, dropped him off, and, you know, we figured this one is going to be much more routine. Well, it was also the morning that Mercury stationed retrograde, like 10 minutes after his procedure was scheduled to start. Mercury stationed. So I was expecting some kind of hiccup of one sort or another, scheduling, you know, any kind of mix-ups. Well, what happened was they called in recovery, you know, and said the stent was placed and everything was successful. And, you know, we're going to keep him here for a couple hours. And then they let me know that they were keeping him for a while, and then they were sending him home because there were no beds available in ICU. So I went, I kept in touch with them. They called me and said that there was because this was a busy surgery day. On the previous stent was an afternoon thing by the time I saw him, and there was one other person in recovery. So this time I knew it was going to be full, and they probably wouldn't let me back to recovery to sit with him. And recovery rooms, if you've never been in one, are fucking traumatic. You know, they're very traumatic. You see your loved one looking their worst, and I have a phobia. I've always had. What are you eating? Oh my god. I've always had a hospital phobia, and you know, it's better now, but not completely gone. A phobia of needles and procedures, and it's a difficult thing for me to do. So rescue meds certainly came in handy there. But they called and said they'd had a bleeding event. And here's another miracle. They didn't go in through his femoral artery, which was always the protocol with catheterizations in the past, because it's a big vessel and you can get the camera up there and everything. They went through his wrist. Technology is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, so they went through an artery in his wrist. And he did have a bleeding event, and said that his arm swelled up and got like rock hard, and suddenly there was a lot of activity around his bed. If I had been there, they'd have been taking care of me too, because I'd have been out cold on the floor. And so they got it fixed, they got it taken care of, and by the time I picked him up, you know, anytime they called me, it was like first half a ring and I'm grabbing the phone. And they said, you know, it'll be like 10 after 2 when we wheel him out front, and showed me his arm, told me what to look for, sent me home. You know, if he has this, or this, bring him back immediately. And sent us home, said, you know, he's probably going to have some pretty nasty bruising and a lot of pain tomorrow and stuff. Sent him home, and which meant that I was the ICU for the next 24 hours. So we got him through that night, and he was a very good boy. He followed instructions to the letter. Do not bend this arm for 48 hours. Then for the next week, don't pick anything up over 5 pounds, and don't use your wrist as much as humanly possible. So we got through that. And once we got through that 24 hours, and it was like, okay, it looks like he's out of that critical period. Also, the nursing staff in the recovery room told him that they were naming that day Bleeder Friday, because everyone in that recovery room had a bleeding issue. Thanks, Mercury. So once that Saturday night, I knew he was out of the woods and we're on our way to recovery. I had my breakdown, and you know, grief and panic, and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And in the middle of the week is when I started having panic events, and kept him good with my rescue meds. But on Sunday and Saturday, my son and I went out to the grocery store, and we were going to go someplace else afterwards. But as I'm going to the someplace else, it's like, uh-oh. And it's like, no, you'll be okay. Nope, I got to turn around and go home. I'm having a panic attack. So then Sunday, I got hit with a panic attack so hard that we called the squad for me, because I was sure I was dying. And I've been through this twice, 2 other times, with panic attacks so severe that they're just unbearable, and I'm convinced that I'm dying. And it's like, so I need a rescue, you know. Got taken to the ER once, called the squad. This would be the second time I called the squad. Not since 2017, I want to say, 2016. So and the way it feels is just, you know, and I feel like I am on the verge of tunnel vision and passing out. If I sit up, if I'm upright at all, I'm gonna black out, and it's just that lying there. So what I discovered that day is those super severe panic attacks are a symptom of my adrenal cortex just going out, just laying down and dying. So all that is flooding my system is adrenaline, no cortisol. Now, before the holidays, I upped my dose of cortisone because stress is coming. But through the stress of his heart attack, I never thought about upping it even more. So I had to go back to like my original dose from 5 years ago, and it has brought me back to equilibrium, thankfully. But holy shit, just the panic attacks are so bad. So now I just have the regular old, the psychological disorder panic attack rather than the adrenal disorder panic attack. But that was informative. I'm grateful for the experience because I learned something. And we are finding our way back to equilibrium and to recovery now. It's been snowing here like mad. Cliff and I, today he went out and had a nice long ride for himself, and it's just we're out the other side now. But for a couple of weeks there, it was seriously intense. So again, I am so grateful to every one of you that had thoughts about me, had thoughts about Cliff during this time. I reached out on my personal Facebook in the beginning and asked, for prayers for everybody. First of all, it's the unnamed need. Please send me what you got. And I truly believe that those were incredibly helpful in his process. He does have kind of a Hawaiian sunset going from here to here right now. But, to the healthcare workers that are still in overwhelm, I give you a heartfelt apology from everyone who has chosen not to be vaccinated. Every single person. You don't deserve this. You're trying to take care of patients as best you can, and you don't deserve people to be fighting against that. So anyway, I'll be back on very soon with some unboxings. I think I'm going to wait another week until I go back to live streaming, just because, why not? But we'll see. I get impatient too. Anyhow, I just wanted to give you guys an update and to express my gratitude to so many, to so many. Our family is grateful for every one of you. And hi, Gibby. There's Gilbert. So I will see you soon. And until then, this is Luna, the Zen Witch. Blessed be.